my wife has this ritual that has practically become part of the neighborhood scenery. An early morning run, rain or shine, for the last 3 years since we moved in. Every neighbor has seen her at one point or another, gliding down the sidewalk with her headphones in, sweatband on, just minding her own business. The kind of discipline that makes people secretly feel guilty about snoozing their alarms. Nothing dramatic, nothing unusual, until this particular morning turned into something out of a bad parody cop show. Two so-called HOA cops popped out of nowhere like they had been waiting to ambush her. One was a tall white guy with a buzz cut who looked like he had been rejected from 3 Police Academy, a security guard gig at Walmart. The other, a bald black man, strutted up beside him, chest puffed out like a rooster ready to pick a fight. They barked at her, saying this was a no running zone. Yes, you read that right. Apparently, the sidewalk now had speed limits enforced by fake badges. They demanded she show ID. She calmly told them she didn't bring any since, surprise, she was on a run, not applying for a mortgage. She even offered to walk them to our house to prove who she was. But these HOA clowns weren't having it. They dug in their heels, repeating the demand like broken robots. Now, the hilarious part is this. They didn't realize who they were hassling. To them, she was just some fit suburban jogger in running shoes. But to me, I knew they were poking a hornet's nest. Because my wife isn't just an ordinary neighbor with a fitness streak. She's a trained CIA agent with more field experience than these wannabe mall cops could imagine. She tried reasoning with them, telling them there was no law anywhere in the US Code, state statutes, or even HOA bylaws that prohibited running on a public sidewalk. In fact, 42 US Code Parkarish 1983 protects citizens from people pretending to act under authority while violating constitutional rights. But still, they refused to listen. Their hard-headed act was about to collide with reality in the worst way possible. As my wife stood there, sweat dripping down her temple from her run, she started connecting the dots. These guys weren't cops. They weren't even halfway decent rent-a-cops. Their uniforms were mismatched, their badges were the kind you could order off Amazon, and their official tone sounded more like high school kids rehearsing a play. That's when it hit her. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. And in our neighborhood, when something dumb and dramatic happens, there's always one name behind it. Lucy. Lucy, our illustrious HOA president, aka Karen Prime. She's the type of woman who once wrote a 3-page letter to a neighbor because their holiday lights were too cheerful. The same person who fined us because our trash bins were visible from the sidewalk for 45 minutes. And of course, she's never liked my wife. Why? Because my wife doesn't bow down to her HOA throne, doesn't gossip at her ridiculous board meetings, and once had the audacity to call her out for trespassing on someone's yard to check the grass length. So naturally, Lucy cooked up this circus. She probably thought sending these fake HOA cops would intimidate my wife into submission, maybe even scare her enough to give Lucy the satisfaction of control. But if there's one thing you should never do, it's underestimate a CIA agent. My wife wasn't just suspicious at this point. She knew. The way they avoided her offer to verify her identity at our home, the way they puffed their chests like toddlers in a playground fight, it screamed amateur hour. She studied their movements, their tone, even their spacing, like she was back in a training scenario. The pieces lined up perfectly. Lucy had dipped into the HOA budget, or her husband's wallet, to hire these clowns for a little intimidation stunt. My wife played along, outwardly calm, inwardly calculating. Every refusal they gave, every arrogant smirk they threw, was building a case against them in her head. Meanwhile, Lucy probably thought she was sipping coffee at home, laughing at the idea of my wife finally getting put in her place. Oh, if only she knew the tidal wave that was brewing. If you're enjoying the story so far, like and subscribe, because what happens next is where things get spicy. My wife gave them one last chance. Her voice calm, steady, almost too polite for the nonsense she was dealing with. Gentlemen, I'm telling you now, walk away before this gets ugly. But arrogance makes people deaf. The buzz-cut wannabe smirked and reached out to grab her arm like she was some shoplifter at Target. That was his first and biggest mistake. In less than a second, she spun, twisted his wrist, and dropped him flat on his back with a thud so loud it probably woke up half the cul-de-sac. He lay there wheezing, clutching his wrist, suddenly reconsidering all his life choices. The bald one thought he'd play hero, lunging at her with a sloppy tackle attempt. She sidestepped with surgical precision, hooked his leg, and sent him sprawling face first into the grass. 2 down. By now, she was barely breaking a sweat. But the cherry on top, a third officer, probably their backup, came storming out from behind a parked SUV, yelling about assaulting law enforcement. Wrong move, pal. He threw a wild punch. She ducked, countered with a swift strike to his ribs, then swept him off his feet so fast he hit the ground before he realized he was airborne. 3 grown men downed in under a minute by a woman who had just finished a jog. When she finally strolled back home, she was smiling like she just finished yoga, not dismantled a fake police squad. She sat me down at the kitchen table, still in her running shoes, and casually recounted the entire fiasco like it was nothing more than a funny incident with stray dogs. I almost spit out my coffee. Later that day, she made one phone call to the security company that Lucy had hired. Calm, professional, but with the weight of someone who knows exactly how to push the right buttons. By the end of the conversation, those 3 imposters were out of jobs, their little HOA gig permanently terminated. Lucy's grand plan had detonated in her face. Instead of humiliating my wife, she'd managed to expose herself as the mastermind of a pathetic, illegal stunt that cost her allies and credibility in one sweep. Lucy had played checkers, my wife played chess, and checkmated her without breaking a stride. The end. Please like and subscribe for more HOA showdowns like this. Have you had a similar encounter with a Karen HOA or anyone in the HOA board? Let us know in the comments.